Okay with you. Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lauren Rosencrans. I'm co-chair and voting member. I'm going to stay off camera today. I caught whatever's been going around town, so forgive me if I'm a little coffee, but feeling great. Happy to be here. Thanks everyone for coming. As a reminder, this is a meeting of community volunteers tasked to advise council on items related to the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services. Under Portland City Code and state law, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and relevant city staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and the city has made it available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The public will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comment portion of the agenda and can also provide written testimony to the board by emailing utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. Excuse me. Publicly upon anti-racist principles in our meeting spaces and interactions with pub. While every person has the right to share their personal perspective, we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that is targeted toward people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. This means stepping up as a community when there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth. By putting our principles into action, we are active and deliberate. We speak up and speak out. Each person is empowered to maintain the culture of the Portland Utility Board. We focus on the impacted individual or population, condemning the conduct, not the person.
Hi, my name is Amy Archer-Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. Please state your name before you speak and who you are addressing, if appropriate. The chat box is only viewable by the co-hosts, myself and Jonna Lynn. Please limit chats to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for technical assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function is used during discussion, primarily used by the board. We may lower your hand once you begin speaking to just maintain the flow of conversation. During public comment periods, public can raise your hand and you'll be called on when appropriate. If connecting by phone, you may need to press *9 to raise your hand. Videos can be turned on when speaking if desired. It is not required. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And if connecting by phone, you may need to use *6 to mute and unmute. Public comment is taken during the comment period early in the meeting. You can sign up through chat with myself or Jonna Lynn, or raise your hand during the comment period. It's also available just prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. The meeting is being recorded. I'll pass it back to you, Lauren, for the agenda.
Thanks, Amy. So we are past our call to order we are moving forward with disclosure of communications next. We'll leave space for public comment and review of minutes. Sounds like we have a decent amount of updates to hear on the flood safety benefit fee, filtration, some field trip planning, and other projects. And then we're giving the bulk of our meeting to an internal work discussion, and then we'll close out with announcements about the next pub meeting before we adjourn. So this is a moment set aside for any voting board members to disclose any communications with city leadership or bureau staff regarding items that could relate to pub's work. Are there any items that pub members wish to disclose? Okay, hearing nothing, I think we can move on. Also want to set aside some time for a public comment. Please use the chat box to sign up to give public comment, and you'll be called by name to give any comment. Members of the public, I don't think, but if anybody shows up, we can remind them. from Alexis, I think. Thank you, Alexis. I did a quick review. I wasn't present, so I don't have any input. Do we have any other suggested changes or corrections to the previous meeting's minutes?
The Bob voting member. I guess it's not a big importance but I'm listed both under the voting member and the absentee list, so I don't know if that needs to be corrected just for record's sake.
Lynn, yes, thank you for that. I will correct that before posting. Thank you.
Thanks, Daryl. Anything else? Okay, and for the record, it is important. We want everyone to be represented appropriately. Thank you for speaking up. So hearing nothing else, we can accept the minutes with the suggested change.
Okay, so with that, this is Amy, and we'll jump into some brief updates. So some of them are brief, and then depending on the discussion that you all want to have,
Amy,
yeah,
Lorraine here, Lorraine Wilson, voting member. I was running
go ahead.
around looking for my phone. It's regarding the minutes. I'm sorry. I'm multitasking and I didn't know where I rest my phone down, so I couldn't unmute. I just wanted to point out, and it's probably just a rephrasing, where it stated that one of our members with public health information or something to that effect indicated, I was reading it and I thought that it's if it can be rephrased, because we want, I just felt that it was highlighting one particular member. And I think it should be more of based on our expertise as pub members. It was shared, da 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 da. You see what I'm talking about?
Yes, I believe that maybe you're referring to the draft written testimony, and
Oh,
that was
there we go.
before I got feedback from folks, and I do have some a revised version of it that takes that language out, so and provides a little bit more detail as well. So so I'll pull that up and we can review it and
Okay.
and let me know what you think with the revised version. I agree. I think that we both want to highlight expertise of the board as a whole, as well as, you know, not miss the opportunity to highlight some of the specifics of that expertise. So
Yes.
appreciate
Okay,
that.
thanks. I'm glad that
This is Jonalyn, and I do see that that the minutes include information for review. So under the filtration update, pub staff offered to draft some points based on pub's thoughts for review and approval by co-chair as well as member with public health background. So are you wanting me to sort of remove that?
I don't know, it's up
just
to the member who said it, but it's just that it's kind of like putting them on and it's just that my concern is that, oh, so who's this public health person and what's their qualification and what's their this and what's, you know, we go down that rabbit hole. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, because we collectively, we have been intentional about recruiting people with vast knowledge. So that's what I wanted to share. That makes sense?
I'm wondering if
Yes.
instead of calling out any particular member, we can just flag that we wanted to make sure that we highlighted the public health content, because that feedback was solicited from the full pub. So yeah, we can make that revision.
To revise that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for that catch. Okay. So to update. So quickly about flood safety benefit, which has been discussed at prior meetings. As I think we noted in some read ahead, just wanted really the sequence will hear starting so will continue for information just to get feedback about the communication plan as it's developed. So we'll follow up with staff around that piece and potentially have some discussion about that at a future meeting, but that is really all we have related to that. Wanted to give you all just a heads up because at the last meeting we had talked about field trip planning and potential dates, and then we've had some internal conversation with Bureau staff and have some information that we need to explore further with them about other potential locations that might be a good fit for pub as we're preparing for the work that you have in your work plan this year. So we will be meeting with some staff this week, but it couldn't happen before this meeting. So we don't have an update at this time, but just wanted you to be aware. That's why you haven't received any, sort of scheduling information about that. We will continue to move forward and reach out to chairs and full pub when we have more details about that. I'll come back to the annual well, actually, yeah. So as we just mentioned, the draft language that we sent out for the filtration annual report to council. So you've discussed the annual report at a prior meeting in September with the Bureau folks presenting some information, and then had the follow-up request. The chair, Kyle, had volunteered to do some work on drafting some language for what was previously scheduled for October 15th. It was delayed just due to a very full council's calendar. It sounds like October 22nd is potentially the likely date. And so there was discussion about potentially submitting pub written testimony. And at the last meeting, we talked about it being relatively brief, mostly highlighting, just your oversight role and some of the specific things that were discussed in meetings. So we drafted it based on what was provided. And then I do have an updated version to share with you today. First of all, just want to make sure that there's support for pub submitting something in writing, and it's not necessarily a full formal letter. We can just submit it on the online for the item going before council, but then it makes it part of the public record, the pub's position as it relates to the annual report. And so I can pull up, I think we created a slide, but it's a little hard to see. So I'm going to change over my share to a different document that might make it a little bit easier to see, I hope. So the version that I have for you here, it has highlighted on the screen some of the changes that have been recommended by members. So again, we just captured that it's been discussed by the pub, kind of awareness of the concerns that come from the community, and then some information that is specific to some of the health benefits and public benefits of filtration and implementation of that. So the text that is here in red is new language, and I can send this out to folks so that you can see the detail as well. But this is language that was recommended by a pub member. Unfortunately, they were not able to attend today due to some unanticipated work conflicts, but the focus is around the risk, particularly to immune compromised individuals, so vulnerable populations of cryptosporidium. So there's some detail related to that, as well as some recommended language, just highlighting some of the improvements related to corrosion control and the impact of lead in the water. And then, let's see. I think then it closes primarily with just general support for the resumption of work and concern about delays that could increase the costs, and that you continue to be interested in providing oversight. So that's what we've compiled based on prior discussions, as well as additional feedback from some pub members. There was some proposed language that hasn't been discussed recently that the pub member had suggested. They mentioned in one of the recent meetings some questions related to equity and the pipeline path, and where what the rationale is regarding the selection of the routes for the pipeline. There wasn't a full discussion about that. It was raised as a question. And so they had provided this language as an area for pub to consider for discussion. This could be just provided to the Bureau for as questions. It doesn't necessarily need to be part of this written testimony, or you could document in the written testimony the questions that you have, but we don't have a lot of information specific to this other than what's provided, since they weren't able to attend this meeting. So any areas of the draft or initial reaction to the decision to draft written testimony, interest or support in submitting it? Any proposed edits? Open it to the group.
Excuse me, this is Lauren. I would just say that I like the idea of submitting written testimony. Excuse me, especially as we're kind of, I know this is a part of our later discussion, but pushing for more engagement with leadership and council. So I think I like the idea of submitting this testimony. But I would be curious to hear what other people have to say about the content.
Bob, voting member. I agree. I like the idea of the written testimony as well. And um, I I think it would also be important that we do express the questions that we've been asking in the written testimony, like at the end there, where we are basically trying to figure out the rationale there. I would also maybe move to express what information we've been privy to and what we haven't been. So if we haven't been given the information of why exactly this pathway of the pipe run has been chosen, and maybe what research they did to see if this path run was their only option, or if it was merely the cost effective. Maybe it wasn't actually cost effective and they had to incur costs to do it in this way to avoid maybe some communities that are would be impacted. That would be at least good for us to put into the testimony that we asked for that information.
Before jumping to Alexis, I just want to clarify that so it was mentioned as interest in information at the last meeting, but we didn't make a direct ask. There have been prior presentations to pub or discussions with pub earlier on in the filtration planning process, and when during some of their prior updates in earlier years. It's been a while, so I It was just this morning that I got this proposed language, so I did not have time to look back at what was provided before and whether the questions have already been answered. So I'm not sure, but I can explore that before confirming and putting it in there. We can still include it in a way that this is some information Pub is interested in receiving, if it hasn't already been provided or something to that effect. But I wouldn't say that it's been asked and hasn't been provided, because we haven't made a direct request as far as I'm aware. I believe in the past, when there were discussions about the pipeline and the costs and all of those pieces, that the data and information was provided at the time. Alexa.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amy. Alexis Rife, voting member. I like the idea of like acknowledging in here, you know, how long Pub has been engaged on this, since a lot of those conversations I think those conversations predate like everyone on the board at this point. And so it's a good idea to like acknowledge that, and maybe also, right, express that this is just something we're, you know, continue to keep an eye on, is because it, you know, is ongoing, costs are rising, and, you know, the concerns about community members near the facility. In terms of like, I guess my question is a little bit about like, what is the purpose of the council discussion at this point? Like, is it that and what is our purpose on submitting testimony right now? And my apologies if my brain doesn't remember, and we've already talked about that. But is it that we want, you know, like, what are they discussing at council? Just so that we make sure that we're crafting our response. Like, is it just an update, and so we're also updating them, or is there something else happening that we need to ensure that we're being responsive to?
It's a great question, Alexis. So the intent, what is happening is just the same annual report that Pub has received an update on is being presented to council. So the discussion will evolve based on what questions council members have about the project and what's going on. Because of the topic and the active opposition in the specific community around the area, and the land use appeals and that process, we anticipate that there will be, of course, opposition submitted. There may be other public comment as well. Really, the intent was simply for Pub to just document, just as part of the record, that you are engaged, you're providing some oversight, that you're supportive of the work moving forward. And because of some of the questions that have been asked, then just highlighting some of that specific content that we haven't, you know, called out previously in any sort of written form, about some of the reasons why there's support for filtration, and the fact that, I mean, the decision has already been made, it's moving forward, and we want to reach compliance. So that's kind of what Pub has said in the past. It was just an opportunity to document for the record some of the more specific support.
Great. Yeah, that's super helpful. And so in that case, then, yeah, I support us including, right, both some questions and things that we're still curious about, as well as, right, some of this language, the language around why we are supporting the filtration plant. Thank you.
Voting number. Yeah, is exactly as you stated. Because there are these land use appeals going on, that's why I feel it's also important, because the testimony does serve as like our agreement about the importance and the fact that the filtration system should continue. But the questions will also go to serve that we're taking the concerns that these land use appeals are bringing up as well, of why this specific land was chosen, why this specific path. And it just shows that we're asking those questions of the Bureau. And I think it's important to have that in the testimony as well. That's why I mentioned it.
Okay. So I'm hearing general support. Are there any, oh, Jenny, go ahead.
Jumping back, I know pub, it sounds like pub wasn't involved in or the people on the pub right now weren't involved in the initial planning and choosing of the site and that process. But just for my own curiosity, maybe you can point me in the direction to where that discussion, I mean, usually when they choose a site, there's a lot of discussion and should be community engagement at that point. So I'm wondering, at this point, they're in construction and community members are still objecting. And I'm just wondering, don't they have a record of what community engagement they went through when they were selecting the site, and all the stuff that comes before construction? I'm just confused about why they're still concerned about it. And maybe there's somewhere in the history where I can go to find that out. And the other thing was, I'm curious about how they're doing in terms of the budget and where they are now. And, compared to the whole total budget, what percentage, I know they said what percentage has been spent, but are they on track with the budget? Where are we in terms of staying true to, what's been spent and how much this, just give us a sense of it's been tracked, but we don't really know exactly how it's been tracked. And I would just like to know that we're in good shape in terms of the budget and adhering to that. Oh, I forgot to state my name, Jenny O'Connor. Sorry about that.
It's okay. With board members, you all are very clearly identified since we rename you. So that's not always a necessity, but it can be helpful on occasion. So appreciate that, Jenny. Yes, good questions about the budget. We did during the, so I'll talk about budget first and then about your prior question or statement. During the update, there was specific questions about budget, and because of the delays, there are potential budget impacts, but they're still, they're resuming work and working on kind of the adjustments to plan to still meet the deadline that's required. There weren't specifics available at that time, but there was discussion with the Bureau about providing that in a future update. So it is on our list of items to continue to follow up with the Bureau, and in a future update, recircle back to the budget circumstances, what the changes are as a result of delays, and kind of how they're mapping and what the impact is moving forward. So we hope to get more information about that again in the future. It just takes some work to get there. There has been a lot of work with the community and at the city in the site selection, retention of that property specifically for the purpose. And as was mentioned before about the benefits of the specific location due to the benefits of gravity flow in feeding the water supply. So it is, there is information about that. We can see what has been provided previously in some of the other updates or touch base with the Bureau to get some more specific information. But there has been a lot of work with community. It does not change the fact that some community members are more directly impacted by construction in that area because there's a lot more traffic in and out of the roads. It's a large facility that in a space that previously has not had such structures. So there are still concerns that are coming from specifics, and they're pursuing some of those concerns through the legal means that they have available through the land use process. So far, the outcomes of that have been, some changes to how things are defined, and just making sure that plans are in compliance with what is determined through the land use process, but still support for the work continuing to move forward. So it's a delay, not a significant change to the work. It's just been some minor changes, but we can pull from prior updates and or connect you with some resources that might provide a little bit of that detail before the next update.
Okay, thanks.
So at a prior meeting, the decision that the board formally made was that, the chair would sign off on kind of the final version of the writing. So based on what I'm hearing today, unless a different motion is to be made, we can edit it to incorporate the components that you all have highlighted as being important, including some version of just highlighting the questions that PUB will continue to seek information on related to equity and budget and those pieces. And then we have the chair review that for finalization, since we won't have another meeting before then. Is there support from the group for proceeding in that way, since this conversation today can just add some more detail to the content that Lauren and Kyle can sign off on? All right, I'm seeing thumbs up from Lorraine and Alexis.
That works just fine for me too. I'm sure Kyle will be fine with that.
All right, Daryl, I see your thumbs up. Brooke, perfect. Okay, so I see general support from all of you. So we'll take that. Oh, Lorraine, thank you. We will take that and back to revise by us and then coordinate with the chairs to finalize it. Give me a moment. Okay, back to updates. Just wanted to give you all a heads up that the bylaws and the formal co-chair appointment were approved by the mayor. Just took some time to get that through the system, but those are now posted online. So if you're wanting to look back at them, that's where you can find them, is on the PUB website. We, of course, will circle back to those again once we have more information coming from the advisory board enhancement project. So that we'll be probably revisiting those by next year when we're updating bylaws to comply with whatever their recommendations are. We did also want to just update you all about a request that has come in. I don't have a lot of information today, and so was on the fence as to whether to highlight it, but because we'll be doing some internal work with staff to gather more information. But because sometimes things move quickly, I wanted to make sure that we kept you in the loop. And so that whether in this meeting or in between meetings, if you have specific feedback for staff as we're having these conversations, that you would reach out to us and let us know. It came to us a request from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability to consider whether PUB had the capacity and expertise to be engaged in rate review for solid waste management, so garbage hauling and recycling in Portland. The old version of the PUB before the major changes took place in around 2010 to 2015, the PUB was engaged in review of solid waste. When the PUB was reformed and refocused to water and sewer stormwater and oversight of their finances and policies, That solid waste rate review was removed and shifted to the Planning and Sustainability Commission that provided oversight for the work, other work that is done by planning and sustainability, including the waste management stuff. As they are reforming their commissions, they're identifying the lack of the expertise and focus and capacity in their new sustainability commission to continue to do that work, and are looking for other opportunities. We as staff are working on engaging the citywide advisory folks on what the best process is for considering changes to advisory body work, as well as trying to get more information about the specifics, what sort of content, would pub members need over time to have the expertise needed to do reviews of their rates. Their rate process is a little more prescriptive than water, sewer, stormwater, because it is pretty defined by both information from the haulers as well as the Metro franchise. I don't know the specifics because this is new to me and it's not one that I've explored. So I'll know more by the next time we talk about it. But it sounds like there's typically been a couple meetings towards springtime that have to do with review of the rates, and then obviously information prior to that, so that you have the knowledge base about the services and what needs to be considered going into the rates. So wanted to give you a heads up that that request is on the table. It came to us through the Deputy City Administrator, Priya Dhanapal, as something to explore and identify whether you had the capacity and interest in doing that work. So we are still in information gathering, and part of that is hearing from you as well. So I don't know whether folks have anything that you want to contribute today, or if you want to wait for more information, but just want to give a few minutes in case there is anything that you can share with us, so that as we proceed with the meetings with all of the appropriate bureau staff to understand what goes into it, that we're also keeping in mind from pub's perspective any support or concern or just issues to consider. Lorraine.
Lauren Wilson. Thanks, Amy. My main question would be that the purpose is clear of why they want pub involved. And I say that because do they want to use us as a check mark, or we can, we provided information, we go through all the different levels of engagement. And once that is defined, that there's a clear understanding what is needed. Well, if we agree to the type of engagement they are asking for, that it be clear what is needed, and they clearly noted what that engagement looked like and what is required, what would be needed to be provided, because sometimes the questions are difficult. And my concern is that we agree to it and then we come pulling teeth to get information so that we do what we were expecting to do well. So that's my main concern with taking that on, and also capacity. But that's it.
Thank you, Lorraine. Jenny and then Lauren.
Jenny O'Connor. I'm just following up on what Lorraine said, specifics. I mean, historically, has BPS been doing that? What exactly does it entail? just specific questions about what we would be expected to do and what kind of historically, how have the rates been determined? I'm just wondering why, what's behind the request for pub to do this, and then would we be the ones that would be, going and supported to council saying, yes, we agree with these rates, just so, what are they expecting and what historically has been done and what kind of expertise is involved? I guess those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Lauren.
Yeah, thanks. This is Lauren Rosencrantz, voting member. Yeah, just continuing on what Lorraine and Jenny have said, I think I would just want to know some more, have some clarity about what that looks like, what their needs are. And, I expressed this briefly in an email of just like concerns around capacity and complexity. So we already have plenty of work to do. But I do wonder how that would kind of go hand in hand with, forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the project, but with the ABC's improvement. So I would be curious to see what that alignment looks like of as they're considering advisory boards, and just a general topic that has come up since I've been on the board is improving engagement, especially with the new council, and there's just been a lot of complexity. So I think I would like to advocate for those rates being reviewed by an advisory board. But I would just like some more clarity and probably a clear path forward of how we would engage across the board with all the bureaus. And yeah, just more clarity on what that would look like. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We will wait just a minute for those of you who haven't spoken, but if you have additional feedback after the meeting, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. We do have some meetings planned in the next couple of weeks, so we hope to have more information in the next month or so. I think that is it on my end for updates. Jonathan, did I miss anything that is? No, I think I got everything on the screen. No. All right. So we can move into the main topic. So Lauren, will defer to you, but I wanted to just provide some brief updates from staff perspective and what the intent is for the conversation. But really the conversation can go wherever Pub wants it to go. So, we did have discussions at the prior meeting about the ABC work, the advisory boards and commissions, the enhancement or realignment project. I don't know. I've heard it called several things. So I too don't know what it is, but ABCs is probably the best acronym short term for it. And defining some of the work of advisory boards. We've also had conversations as Pub is preparing for entering budget season and taking lessons learned from prior year, both budget and policy and engagement with council, kind of just doing some internal work to think about some of your vision around that engagement and any areas that you want to focus on, brainstorming some, kind of key priority areas that you want to make sure that you're highlighting, potential relationship building with council members. We have submitted your annual report and current year work plan. So we did that as approved at prior meetings. That was submitted in September. And per code, Pub also has the opportunity to engage directly with council when that's submitted around your work plan and some open discussion about priorities in the coming year. And so we wanted to gauge, some years that has happened, some years it hasn't. It depends on the capacity and willingness of council to engage, as well as the productivity and the best timing based on pub's perspective. So we really want to get a sense from you on what your interests are in engaging with the policy committee and or full council, and just help determine some next steps. A few things as you're thinking about all of how you want to engage is that we know we're going into a budget season that is challenging for council. You know, as we've shared with you, there's the financial picture for the city on the general fund side, but as well for others as costs are increasing, inflation has gone up, cost of construction has gone up, and some of the challenges that bureaus will share as we move forward in budget, that there's just resource limitations and potential impacts. And with the hiring freeze at the city, that also has impact on stress and reorganization. You know, all of those changes that are going on have impact on staff. We hope to have some budget guidance come out in the next month. As soon as it's available, we'll share that and we'll make some more specific budget related plans. But it just seems like a good time to hear from you all a little bit of what you'd like to see in your engagement with the bureau leadership, administrative, executive leadership, and council leadership moving forward. I have another slide that has some potential areas of engagement and some potential priorities to highlight based on what I've heard from you in the work plan process, as well as feedback that's been given over time. So I can pull that up, or we can just start with open brainstorm. So we can go whatever direction you, Lauren, as chair, and pub members all want to go. It's an open discussion. The time is yours.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, excuse me. Like Amy said, this is open discussion, so please provide input wherever. I don't know if it makes sense to just go by topic or maybe just leave things open and go from there. I think I'll start. I have a question. What does a work session look like? Like what would be like the platform and what would be kind of the outcome, I suppose?
Great questions. So the work session typically will look like usually some block of time. I would assume, like my gut tells me, likely with the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, given the changes in council, but sometimes, I mean, obviously in the past it was with full council, sometimes it was just with an individual commissioner. But a work session itself usually has some kind of designated presentation time. So that's for pub to determine what information it is that you're highlighting for council. Probably a few key highlights from the prior year, but the bulk of the time kind of highlighting what you are focusing on and the reasons why, or some of your value priorities, anything that you think you want council to understand and hear from you as an advisory board, as well as that you want to hear back from council to inform your work. So understanding what some of their priorities or reactions are to some of the challenges, so that you know how to integrate that in the coming year as you're taking feedback back to them. So after some brief presentation, then it's open discussion. So you know, that presentation likely would be provided by a few of either board members and or staff, helping, you know, update on the content. And then the open discussion would be between, you know, whatever board members are present and council, and it's a combination of Q&A and just open discussion. Work sessions are, I guess, a little bit less formal than hearings. Like it's not a direct proposal and then a decision on a proposal. It's supposed to be a more conversational. But so that's typically how it would be. The report itself is kind of the backing document behind it, so that it encourages them to have reviewed that, as well as whatever content you would present during the session itself. You could also provide other materials if you were interested in that. But you can help define what that looks like. We also need to hear from, whatever avenue you're going down, from the chair of that committee and or the council, the president of council, like what they're interested from their side as well.
Got it. Thank you. And forgive me if you explain this, but like, is per code, does that mean it's required that we have an annual work session, or just like suggested or allowed?
It's somewhere in there. I mean, technically the report to council is presented in that way. We've already presented the report or provided the report to council. The formal presentation of a report to council makes it more, I guess, documented in the record as council receiving it, and council can either accept or reject it, I guess, is what they would do with the report. I mean, generally it's information they're receiving, they're providing a reaction, and they're accepting the report. It has not always happened because it has not been either the priority for pub and or council. So for example, it has depended on their capacity. It's like, if you look at their work session scheduling, the work session would be so far out, it wouldn't be productive for pub to be engaging at that point. Like budget engagement was more important. So it's looked different based on both the council and whoever leadership is, executive and political leadership, what their capacity is, as well as what your capacity is, because it takes time and capacity for you as members to be prepared and know what you're talking about. And it's a little different this year because we've had members start, later in the year than usual. There's been a lot of change at the city. And so the timing of when is the best engagement for pub directly with council is up to you and leadership. We've also had conversations, as we have in the prior. I think we let you know that we've had conversation with some members from another board who, similar to some of pub's interest, is talking more about direct relationship building with individual council members and trying to have some of that more one-on-one or two-on-one conversations with them to share some of your priority talking points so that they're well educated as they move into decision making related to the utilities and understand what your feedback has been.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. I have a few more points, but I want to leave space for others that have comments or questions about leadership engagement, or specifically a work session.
The one thing that I would add to it being, kind of required, but it hasn't always been done. When we've opted not to, we have just, for the record, made it clear why we're opting not to, or deciding to approach it differently. So whether that was the mayor, saying we're in agreement, or whatever level of leadership was appropriate, just kind of the agreement about the timing, or postponing it and doing it the next fall because that made sense, that kind of thing. So it has been an intentional thing, not just that time has passed and we missed it.
Got it. Thank you. Lorraine, please go ahead.
Thank you. I 3 years in, and one of the questions I've had over those 3 years with regard to POB is the perception of ABCs, as we call them. And with the new structure, I'm wondering if that knowledge or has been passed on to the current structure, in that what are the purpose for having these committees or boards or whatever? Is it just something nice to have? Or is there understanding of the purpose of POB? And I think clarifying that would help the ABCs be utilized better. Because I know with all the transition that was happening that last year and all of that, it seems that we were, you know, out there, hey, we're here, we've done work, we've been doing work. And I understand, you know, when new people come in, they're like, you know, they come in with all the enthusiasm and whatever, and they're going to change the world. But however, there are things that have been done, there are structures that have worked. And that is my main concern. And when we're talking about that engagement with leadership, because I think there needs to be a clear understanding about the importance or the purpose of what it is we do and why it is. POB has been instrumental in moving things through, or reviewing and challenging, questioning, supporting, and all of that. And I'm not sure if that is there yet. I know that there are certain testimonies and engagements that we've done, and they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, this makes sense, you know, they know what they're talking about. But how do we create that understanding or transfer that understanding with the new council? That this is what we do, and this is why we do it. This is the kind of engagement we involved in. These are the kinds of questioning we do. We are really intentional about the work that we do. So I'm thinking that is probably foundational when we're talking about engaging with leadership, because yeah, leadership will meet with whatever. Okay, they want to meet, whatever, let's meet with them. But understanding that in a real way. And even with the former leadership structure at the city before we had DCAs and all of that, I think probably some of that knowledge should be shared about, hey, we have gone to the pub, and yeah, sometimes they ask hard questions, but it has really made us think and relook things and really been held accountable. And so that's where my mind is at, in that, yeah, we could have a some kind of leadership meeting that is meeting for meeting's sake, but I think it should be much more substantial. Give me more beef in grounding in that understanding of, one, that we are all volunteers. Two, PUB is made up of, I think it has been the widest spread in expertise that we've had over the years. And that is understood clearly as we move forward with establishing that collaboration with city leadership and how we do and what we do. And sometimes we may not agree, but it's an informed disagreement. And sometimes when we agree, it's an informed agreement. And that's what I wanted to share, because yeah, I don't see, I don't know, I may be missing something, but that's my perception. Thanks.
Thanks, Lorraine. I would agree with that also. Daryl, go ahead.
Yes, I'm also in agreement with that, Lorraine. Yeah, it is mainly about perception, both from the leadership and for the group that we all even given our wide expertise, we all share this desire to advise in a way that best serves the public. That's the way that leadership should be perceiving us as well and be using us in that way. So, like with the most recent example I can pull with the FSB kind of being moved forward, uh, I may be wrong. There may have been another advisory group that overviewed that fee and how it would be rolled out. I know technically it
That's the
went forward.
fundraiser.
Yeah, it went forward without maybe specific um advice from this group and this board, and maybe it's because it didn't quite neatly fit into being understood as a utility rate, but it given the fact that it will be going on like utility bills, it's um I think the public could have and it would serve in our perception to the public to be like dialed in on that approval. Um, so I think it's maybe important for leadership at the council to understand that like before any sort of rate increase, decrease, fees, any sort of public impacting uh changes when it concerns the utilities, we definitely should be advising on that. And our advisement does kind of serve as a seal of improvement or disagreement. I think that's the way the public sees us, and rightly so. So, yeah, I think it's if, and I'm not to put words in their mouth, I'm sure the council sees us that way right now, but maybe it just needs to be reinforced.
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, I would echo that. Excuse me. Um, Not only just letting everybody know that we're here, but also just pursuing what that engagement looks like. And I think that's going to be a long-term effort, especially with all of the shifts in structure this past year. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you. Alexis, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I agree completely with everything that that Lorraine and Daryl just said. And when I was thinking about the work session, one, I'm trying to remember if Lorraine, maybe you'll remember if since I've joined the pub, I don't recall having a work session. Maybe I'm misremembering, especially the first year, which is a blur as you figure out what's going on. But I think it makes a lot of sense for us to do a work session, maybe at least initially with full council even, so that they understand our role, because I totally agree that like that is really, really critical and important with the full council to understand the role of ABCs and the role of pub specifically, because they're all voting on these really important issues around the utilities. And then perhaps, moving forward, we can focus on the committee. But I think that that's really important and I think that going into those sessions, we as a pub need to be really clear on like what our goals and objectives are for that meeting. I tend to be kind of reticent about meetings to present a report that someone can read. But I think right now where we are with the new council, new form of government, et cetera, then that objective of them of like getting to know who we are and how we operate and what our priorities are is really important to say and have their questions rather than just in a report. But then moving forward, I would want to think about what our goals are in that meeting. Are we seeking feedback? Are we seeking, alignment on priorities, on like what they're concerned, whatever it might be. I just think it's really important that we're really clear on the goals of that, because it would be a big time commitment, kind of across the board, and want to make sure that we're using people's time intentionally and meaningfully. The other kind of thing that stands out to me here is the relationship building with counselors, because of, as we've kind of talked about a little bit, the geographic distribution of pub members, and then of course the counselors themselves. And so thinking about if there may be key folks or that we want to engage depending on what a specific issue may or may not be. So I think it might be worthwhile doing a little bit of kind of research or thinking about that from that angle. And then when we think about kind of, leadership meetings with the bureaus and executive leadership, I really appreciated the report out in our last meeting about what was discussed at that meeting and kind of like what's coming down the pipeline. And I think that that's just helpful for us to have moving forward. So really appreciate the kind of conversation around how we're engaging as we think about improving processes kind of across the board. So thanks.
Alexis, just before Jenny speak, Alexis, I just want to, and Amy can hold me accountable, but I recall a time when pub really had to do public testimony because we were more involved in work sessions. And Amy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I am recalling a time when we would have been more involved in work sessions than we were like, oh, take your 3 minutes at public testimony.
Thanks, Lorraine.
I'm not sure whether to jump in and respond, or Jenny, why don't you go and then I can add information.
Okay, Jenny O'Connor, what I'm hearing and I'm thinking is that honestly, since I've been involved, which has only been 3 months, I feel like we're in a reactive mode. Like people are coming to us and giving us reports and saying, well, what do you think? And honestly, I think we could be more effective if we're more proactive in seeking these. This is what you've all been saying, really, that we're more proactive in seeking these work sessions. I'm not sure about going to the full council first. I think we might, and this is just my thinking, that we might be better off going to the council or what is it, the committee, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, because they're more focused on infrastructure work, which is what utilities are. That's just my assessment. I think with regards to relationship building with counselors, I think, who was it? Alexis said, yeah, you try to hone in on what counselors are focused, or even have it on the radar of what utilities are. I personally would like to be proactive in doing a work session with the water and the new the One Water situation, and how that's coming along and how they're addressing asset management. And I know Kyle has been on top of that too, but how they're using their asset management system and folding it into the one water planning and how, you know, they can combine some of that. And this is kind of getting into the weeds, but I really think that we need to, as a group, decide on what we really need. We feel like we could be the most effective in terms of advising and giving input and asking questions, but definitely get that, you know, be more proactive in seeking those work sessions. And the last thing is just anecdotally that in terms of working with the counselors, I've been on the Critical Energy Infrastructure Policy Hub project, and it's taken years to educate people in the council on the importance of the CEI hub and the dangers. So I think that it really helps if we, you know, if we can establish relationships with the counselors that have the infrastructure first and foremost, or at least, you know, are focused on that instead of trying to approach the whole council. Those are just my thoughts. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate that. Yeah, I would echo that as well. I agree. I think funneling through the committee, at least to start, would be the most effective in my opinion, just because they are going to have, like you said, they're more focused on the work that we do, and I think they'll be better equipped to present any information that we share or any findings or decisions or feedback in the most effective way to full council because they're more involved. Just my 2 cents, but I think that is something that we're just kind of figuring out. And so I'm hearing from what Jenny and Alexis said, and most of you in general, that we need to really hone in on some specific priorities. So that's, I think, an action item for us. Maybe our next meeting we can kind of discuss. And Amy, is that something that we could like, kind of like what Jenny was just saying of really working to be more proactive? Is that something we could work into our work plan of like specifics, or is that something we just kind of I don't know where to like place that information.
Yeah, I think that certainly incorporating it into the work plan. So I think we've heard from Kyle, you know, part of the intent in the work plan in hopes to be more proactive is to identify some, you know, key priority or two and identify whether forming a subcommittee and doing or a project team to do some work that then comes back to the board. That's how when the board has wanted to be more proactive, it's taken some of that time commitment outside of meetings to do some legwork and move it forward, in part because there is a necessity to also still have capacity to be reactive because things are moving forward. I think there's a lot of change at the city. We're still reacting to decisions that are being made, trying to still inform before they're final and have impact. And so if you don't have the capacity to do that when something comes up, then you may miss an opportunity and the decision is made without any input. So I think, you know, Lorraine, you posed a time where effective work sessions maybe were moving stuff forward in a way that it didn't result in, you know, the testimony before council. I've not seen that in my time working with the pub or what I know of prior to the pub, just because I think the pub has frequently advocated for something that has not is not the decision that council made. So even when there were work sessions, sometimes they felt more like a checkbox because it had to happen as opposed to a productive, engaging conversation. And so I think all of you who have made the point about having clear outcomes and something you're hoping to achieve from that is the critical piece. And so I think making clear what your priorities are, and what you hope to achieve from that is an important component. And I think it still means that you're likely still providing testimony. It's just maybe sometimes that testimony is more productive because you can acknowledge the positive things that have changed because you've been engaged, and the remaining piece where you're still not in alignment with the decisions that have been made, or you feel that a priority needs to be elevated. Some of your conversations around, deferred maintenance and infrastructure, and some of the decisions on one-off years where rates have been lower than even what Pub was advocating for, and that just creates a bigger problem down the road. Those are some of the things that, as well as just the need for early and authentic engagement, are some of the messages that it does take multiple years, as Jenny indicated, the education process and sometimes repetition of message is sometimes what it takes to actually see some change and some impact as a result of that. The impact may not be in the specific decision. It may be that it builds and they've heard the same thing several times and need to, not make that situation worse based on the decision. So trying to think if there was something else that I said I would respond to. The other point that Lorraine, you raised about the importance of the full council understanding the mission, the purpose of advisory boards and commissions, 100% agree. That is part of the work that should be coming from the ABC, the Advisory Boards and Commissions Enhancement Project. They will be finalizing their recommendations and I believe re-engaging with council in November. And part of that is defining a clear purpose for boards and commissions generally, but then also making it very clear that each advisory board needs a very clearly stated purpose and goals, that the reason they exist and how they're going to be engaged. And so I anticipate that being something that will provide feedback on and continue to engage and hone Pub's work around and communicating with full council. But I agree that the policy committee is the group, the body that is most directly engaged in the initial review and decisions that are then recommended to the full council. We can send, we only have about 10 minutes, so I'm conscious of time and want to make sure that we have enough space for any comments that you all have before wrapping. Lorraine, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Well, my memory is really bad, but for some reason I felt that we did have more engagement. I think it's because we engage more closely with the finance people from the different bureaus and stuff like that. And on that note, I segue into budget. What's going on with the budget? And just to highlight the fact that I was listening to OPB or NPR, whichever, and they were talking about parks and recreation and the fact that the deferred maintenance is in the millions. And I'm wondering what would be the audit report if they did the same for the, and this is not me pointing fingers at anybody because we've been having these conversations over the years about deferred, hey, we need some rate increase because we have a lot of deferred maintenance and stuff like that. So I just wanted to raise budget and where they're at in the process, because we all know when the budget is approved and the next day they start planning for the next year, and we enter October already. And I'm curious to know what's happening with budgets.
Those are really great points, Lorraine, and important as we move into this process. We have, I don't know the number offhand. I mean, the bureaus, may or are working on them, but I do recall in prior years, some of the charts that the bureaus have about the different levels of risk and the volume of dollars of maintenance work that's required. And so I do believe that we're an audit conducted. I think the bureaus are auditing themselves and constantly aware of some of those numbers and part of what they build into their financial plans, and certainly have communicated with pubs. So I expect we will be getting more information about that, but we'll certainly flag that for our conversations. Part of I mentioned the discussion around field trip. Part of the conversation that I anticipate having is also we have an awareness of the need to see, maybe hands-on the types of repairs or infrastructure work that is underway, either that is not being done or resulted from an emergency repair, which your messages continue to reinforce that the emergency repair is going to be more expensive than the preventive maintenance were it funded, and that there's rate impacts because of that. So without the slight rate increases, instead we're looking at a larger gap as a result, and the potential to see whether there are any specifics like that might be helpful to actually see hands-on what the direct impacts of that kind of work and deferred maintenance as we move into budget. So I think that's part of what we're hoping to have the conversation about, is see if we can identify a way in which to experience that a little more personally, in addition to the content that will be provided. So a lot more information coming in future meetings as we move into budget, but hopefully we'll be able to provide a little bit more background specific to your questions as well. I will, following the meeting, we can send out just some of the initial work we were doing in trying to think through what are some of the priorities that we've heard from you over time that might be potentials, and maybe help inform you all so that kind of what a framework is, and you can identify which ones are the most important, as well as what's missing and maybe is an important focus, because I do think having your feedback on the specific outcomes and what your priorities are an important piece, both budget specific and for the direct engagement with council. And as staff, we'll also follow up with the appropriate people internally about the interest in work session, to get a sense of the potential timing when it's feasible that it could be scheduled, so that we would have a framework to work with and build towards. So look for more information via email or by our next conversation. Any final closing thoughts on that before we move to final announcements? All right, let me move. Nope, ignore that. That I'll send to you outside of the meeting. That was a little bit of the framing that we did as staff on kind of the next step of the priorities. So I'll send that to you outside. As we've discussed, the advisory bodies project. So there are mission or purpose statements and guidelines and, some of the stuff that we reviewed briefly in the prior meetings that are out there. So it's a great opportunity for some of that feedback, like you shared today, some of those specifics, Lorraine, around purpose and ensuring that exists for boards. That is an opportunity to provide some of that direct feedback to the citywide project, not just specific to pub. So if you haven't completed the survey or provided any feedback, either do that through the survey, or you can just send an email to the advisory body project directly. There are links in the information that we sent out to you, so you don't need to conform it to the questions or the categories that they have for feedback. You can send in any feedback that you have generally about advisory boards based on your experience at the city. And now is the time to do that as they finalize stuff before the next conversation with council in November. Jonathan, do you want to, I believe there are confirmed cases for the November advise, or what am I'm
Yes.
blanking?
Administrative review.
Yeah. There you go.
Committee. Yes, there are at least 2 and potentially 3 cases that are likely to be heard. And since that Tuesday, the 11th, is actually a holiday, it's going to be a Wednesday at a slightly different time, 9 to 11. It would be so wonderful to get a volunteer. You do not have to have participated before in order to volunteer as that community voice, but the committee itself can't run, isn't allowed to run without that community voice from Pub. So just really important to get someone confirmed, and really appreciate the flexibility of Lorraine, yes, or 2 days ago, filling in last minute was so helpful. But I want to make sure that new members understand that if you're available, you're certainly welcome to participate. If you're feeling a little bit nervous ahead of time and want to observe, I can help facilitate that for your first go round. But would really love to get a volunteer signed up for that November 12th.
Jonah, what's the time?
It's from 9 to 11 on the 12th.
Mm.
So it's just a half hour earlier. It may end up only going until 10:30. Unlikely to take the entire 2 hours, but they just want us to hold that in case the discussion is longer than they anticipate.
If no one else volunteer, you can ping me. And if someone wants to, I enjoy them. The first time I went, I was like petrified. Literally, I was like, "Whoa." And I think it wasn't until my second meeting I realized, oh, there's more information to read to inform you. I was just reading the first 2 things, and it's a whole bunch of stuff. And if someone wants to be there to observe at that meeting, I'm quite willing to have them. But it is you really learn about how rates impact customers and who are challenged to pay, and some of the challenges they deal with, and all of that. So I enjoy it.
Thank you, Lorraine. Brooke?
Yeah, Brooke Brown, a voting member. I'd be happy to take up Lorraine's offer to be as an observer for this first time, and then hopefully continue participation.
Thank you so much. Jenny?
And Brooke, I'll just probably reach out to you to tell you what are some of the things to look at that I wasn't aware of. So we can touch base, okay?
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Jenny?
Yeah, I was going to say I would be willing to be an observer as well if there's room for. Is this on a virtual meeting?
Yes. Yeah, it is
no,
by Zoom.
Yeah, no, I would like to be an observer as well.
Okay. Then I will follow up by email. Alexis?
Yeah, I can't do the 12th, but I can do the 9th. And I want to just echo Lorraine's comments that I was also absolutely terrified the first time I did it. And they do say, like, Alexis, what do you think? And I was like, I don't know. But they provide so much information, and I totally agree that it is such an important way for us to be involved and to hear more about the actual, like, the workings of the bureaus. So I really enjoy them.
This is Lauren.
Thank you.
I would just echo that. Even when I'm still fairly fresh member, but as a new member, I did mine, and I will echo the nervousness, but they're super rewarding, and you get plenty of information. And yeah, like everybody said, it's very hands-on, and I'm happy to kind of be like a backup for either of these dates, Jonalyn, if that helps. If something comes up with Lorraine or Alexis last minute, feel free to ping me.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's willingness to serve in that capacity.
Sure.
Right, so I think we are just over time, and we don't have a lot of information yet on the topics to confirm for our next meeting. So we will continue to work on those. We're waiting for some information on the SMART discount and affordability strategy and what the timing for that will look like. So we hope to have more information before we meet again on that, as well as some of the other things. So likely we'll, be having some conversations starting related to budget, but certainly if there's other items that are emerging for you based on what we've already heard and or something on these future topics, please reach out to us in between meetings and let us know. We're always happy to talk about it and figure out how it works into the future agendas. And I think that is it. So I will let Lauren officially adjourn, but I think that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for your discussion.
Yep. Thanks everybody for your input. You could call it adjourned. See y'all in a few weeks.